guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, going to go over an article titled, I am perfectly okay with open relationships. Here's why. And guys, this article is written by a young gal. And in this, what you're going to see here and why she describes and talks about how she's so okay with open relationships and her thinking is a perfect example why, in my opinion, we truly are in not only a dating Armageddon, but more to the point, a relationship Armageddon, because this is the young generation here. And it is no wonder, it's a perfect example of why I say we are literally in Sodom and Gomorrah 2.0. With how things are going nowadays, open relationships, open marriages, etc., OnlyFans, amongst many other things. And you're going to see here her reasoning why she's all for open relationships and the whole attitude behind it and everything. And when I do as many articles as I do, guys, and stories and personal stories you give me, eventually you start seeing a pattern here. And it's obviously primarily this with the younger generation, especially with these types of things qualifying for the Sodom and Gomorrah 2.0 world that we're in right now. Perfect example. And anyhow, guys, I want to go over this just to show you this. And it's, when I go over these things, these stories, these articles, is it any wonder that so many guys, of all ages, but especially the younger crowd, the younger guys, they've thrown their hands in the air and they said, that's it, I'm done. I don't need this in my life. I don't need this BS. I really don't need relationships. I really don't need to date. I'm happier focusing on me, hanging out with my bros, enjoying all the things I enjoy, and that's it. And these same gals will then complain that we're all the good men, or the guys don't want to date, or something like that. Well, is there any wonder here? So I think it's going to be a while before the pendulum shifts the other way. In some areas, I've noticed where some people are starting to wake up about things, but still, there's plenty of ways to go. But anyhow, I'm going to go through this, guys, and you're going to be shaking your heads as I go through some of the things that she talks about here. So it starts off, she says, my guy friend admitted to me that he found me attractive, and he oftentimes dreamt about having you-know-what with me. He said that he liked my hair, my immaculate legs, lips, and my mindset the most. I graciously accepted his confession. Well, right then and there, that shows you once again why I say men and women can't be friends, because this so-called friend of hers really is fantasizing about hooking up with her. So the friendship is a fraud. For those of you that when I talk about the men and women being friends, perfect example. A few weeks went by, and Darius had another confession to make. He had strong feelings for my cousin as well. He lusted over her smooth, dark skin, tall height, and shapely frame. I listened and allowed him to speak freely without judgment. After all, I was learning a lot about the male psyche. Well, this guy's obviously a jackass the way he's confessing all this stuff to her. He actually thinks it's going to get him in the sack with her. Good luck. Then he informed me about his coworker who possessed completely different physical characteristics from me and my cousin. But he was head over heels about her, and he looked forward to seeing his crush in the office every day. It seemed like my friend would excitedly tell me about a new love interest every couple of weeks. One woman was really kind-hearted, another one was extremely ambitious. The woman he saw on Instagram seemed S-word uninhibited. He fell for different qualities in different women, and his eyes lit up every time he had the chance to inform me of the women who made his heart sing. What a dork. And did I mention that he had a long-term girlfriend whom he plans to marry soon? Well, newsflash. There isn't a guy walking around that doesn't notice eye candy wherever he goes. But most guys aren't going to talk about this to other gals that they're friends with like this. I don't know what this guy's thinking, but I've known guys like this. And usually they think that's actually going to attract them in some means. It's ridiculous. In fact, I'm thinking of one guy right now I'm acquainted with that does this type of crap. And to no surprise, he's been on a permanent dry spell for a long time. Imagine that. I do believe that he is not an anomaly. Maybe a lot of men desire other women, and they just aren't comfortable admitting this to their partners. Well, no guy in his right mind is going to admit to his girlfriend that, oh yeah, by the way, she's hot, I'd like to nail her in my freaking office. No, because that'd be it. That'd be stupid. But believe me, every guy is certainly noticing, but we don't necessarily talk about it like that. And it doesn't mean we're going to act on it. Darius taught me that men will be in monogamous relationships and still yearn for other women, because the world is overflowing with sexy, alluring ladies. Plus, they possess personality traits and qualities that their partners simply don't have. It is what it is. Different flavors exist for a reason. Well, yes, again, guys are going to notice good-looking women left and right. Okay, and certainly our minds will be in the gutter, but that doesn't mean we're actually going to act out on it and cheat. The majority of guys aren't going to do that because most guys are good guys. The problem is that it's the opposite sex that sadly does act out upon that, even though the guy's a good guy and he's loyal. She says, I cannot control how a man feels about other women while he is with me, and I'm completely okay with that. Yeah, sure you are. There have been times when I would lay in bed with my significant other and he would tell me about the new coworker at his place of employment or the woman walking down the street who caught his attention. Who does she hang out with here? These guys are morons. You don't talk to your girlfriend about other women. I mean, that's just going to cause nothing but drama and chaos. How stupid is that? I try to keep an open mind and just listen because his lust for another woman doesn't necessarily mean that his love for me is diminishing or even gone. Well, she's obviously attracting the type of people, the type of guys that back her views on the world. Over the years, I've grown more comfortable with open relationships. With a lot of self-reflection, I realized I do not care for loyalty or commitment. What does that say right there about our care? I'm going to read this one more time. I really don't value those things. I realize I do not care for loyalty and commitment. Well, if she doesn't care about loyalty and commitment, she sure as hell is not going to give loyalty and commitment. What does it say about her? What does it say about the state of how things are with this younger generation? And we all know what movement has molded this so-called empowered generation to be able to do what they perceive that all guys do. Mark my words, this same gal in 15, 20 years, when she's past her prime in her 20s, is going to then be seeing things quite differently. But by then, options are going to be limited. I really don't value those attributes. For me, it's sovereignty over everything. Translation, empowerment. I am a free woman, and I want to be in relationships with individuals who know how to prioritize their needs and wants. And I mean that. I cannot count on anyone to give me their allegiance. I can only rely on the fact that people do whatever benefits them. That's your experience. That's because you're attracting certain guys. I mean, right there, you can't count on anybody for their allegiance. There are plenty of guys out there, by and large, that would be loyal. That wouldn't cheat, wouldn't do anything like that, wouldn't talk about other chicks in front of you. But she's obviously attracted to a certain type of guy, and by being with those types of guys, she just assumes that all guys are like that. Kind of like how the movies and TV shows and the songs make all guys out to be cheaters and all that, when in reality, we all know darn well it's the opposite of how things are. I watched a movie called My Favorite Five, and I really enjoyed it. The plot follows a successful executive who doesn't care for marriage or children, and she holds the belief that one man will never be enough for her. So she always keeps 5 men on hand at a time. 5 dumbasses at a time. These 5 partners each have one separate responsibility. One man for sex, another for intelligent conversation and debate, one for shopping and luxurious experiences, another for emotional support, and one man who is strong and protective. Feeling inspired, I went to Facebook and announced to my timeline that I want 5 partners. Ha! Would you believe it that some men stepped forward and replied to my post, asking how they could apply to be one of my 5 boyfriends. That goes to show you guys how many guys out there need to watch channels like mine, or other channels like my channel or other channels like mine. Guys lined up to be one of her 5 boyfriends. What does that say? It's stuff like that that causes the egos to go through the roof. Ego the size of Australia. It says, I do not own anyone in the free world, and I do not have the time nor the care to keep tabs on people. I am much too busy loving on myself and working on my future to care what anyone else outside myself is doing. I am too self-absorbed to keep tabs on any man. Well, the self-absorbed part, that's certainly true. Being suspicious 24/7 leads to stress, and stress leads to wrinkles, unnecessary weight gain, and acne. No thank you. Well, again, your experience has been that all guys are like the ones you talked about, and that really isn't true, but obviously she's been attracted to a certain type, therefore that's her view of the world, and this is how she acts. The reality is, the times are showing that it's the gals are the ones that aren't reliable. Meanwhile, most guys, no, they're not like that. She says, I remember when the let me see your phone phenomenon came out in social media. Women would ask their boyfriends and husbands for their phones to make sure they weren't liking pictures of other women, inboxing other ladies, or following the Instagram baddies. These ladies were doing the absolute most with this possessive behavior. It seems draining to keep a suspicious eye on your partner all the time, don't you think? Well, that whole thing she described was ridiculous, and any guy that went along with it's a freaking moron. Can the man even breathe in peace without you wondering if he's thinking about somebody else? Even if your suspicions are correct, what are you going to do about it? A lot of women pride themselves on being wives and girlfriends to a fault. They're not leaving the relationship anyway, because they have to avoid being single at all costs. A woman who isn't partnered with a man is open to being called lonely and bitter. Oh, the horror. Well, there are women out there still that do actually like relationships, and there are some that definitely will do anything to be in a relationship as opposed to being alone. But the fact is, there are a lot that do. There are some that want the traditional route, and there are a lot that do want to be in relationships. It just depends on how it goes. The minute my partner doesn't want to be with me anymore, he is free to leave my life. He doesn't have to stick by my side through thick and thin, or just because we have a history together. Nobody has to sacrifice a huge chunk of their lives over to me to keep me happy. Simply put, I do not like to be controlled, so I give any man I'm with the same respect and freedom I desire. She has definitely been burned and hurt pretty bad. Guaranteed. I don't like to be controlled. Just because you're in a relationship with a good guy and he says he doesn't want you to obviously go hook up with other dudes doesn't mean that you are being controlled in the way that you think you're being controlled. She says, loyalty as a con man's game. I'm not a big fan of the concept of loyalty, yet a lot of people swear by it. Because you yourself are not loyal. You're not capable of it. And your experience shows you that, in your view, all guys are that way, which is not true. I just don't understand the hype. Loyalty just seems like a pretty flowery word we use for others to feel entitled to us. I'm completely convinced that most people do nice deeds and favors for their friends and their partners to trap these people into relationships. By and large, people do things for their friends or other people because they want to, because they're decent people. Are there some that do things to manipulate a situation and get their way? Yeah, there are some out there. I'm not going to deny that. But this idea that everybody's that way, she definitely has a very sour, unhappy, negative view on the world. She says, what I've witnessed is that many people sacrifice themselves to their spouses and friends so they can retain long-term relationships out of obligation. Believe me, some people do not fulfill favors or submit to their partner's requests just for the sake of being kind and loving. They do this as a form of control. I've learned this the hard way many, many times. I'm not going to deny some people don't do that, but the idea that everybody does it, or the majority, no. Sounds to me that she has definitely ridden the carousel with Chad and Tyrone a few times in her life, and she assumes every guy out there is Chad and Tyrone. So I adapted to being more self-sufficient and never allowing people to do the things for me with strings attached. Strings I never knew about, by the way, because most of the time I never ask people to put themselves on the line for me, and they do it anyway, just so I can feel indebted. That scam doesn't work with me anymore. By the way, when people cannot control you or be prepared to be called selfish. I'm no longer offended by that word, and I wear my selfishness proudly. Just giving you a heads up. Learn to be okay with the name calling. It's a sign that you're nobody's effing doormat. Well, believe me, I'm all for doing what you want to do and taking care of yourself and putting yourself first. Don't get me wrong, and there will be people that will call you selfish for that. But the way I talk about it is different than her view on how things are. She says, I don't do commitment. Truth be told, most of the relationships I've been in lasted from 6 months to a year tops. Call me crazy, but I get bored quickly. Well, there's a giant surprise. I'm willing to bet you the type of guy that she probably was in the longer relationships with, they were the good guys, and she got bored. And then she went back to the guys that probably were the types that led her to this worldview. And to say pretty much, hey, I'm all for open relationships. Open relationships are for me. No guys can be trusted. That's it, blah, blah, blah. And how many more are like this. And being faithful to one man for a long period of time feels like a prison sentence. Okay, drama queen. While I do not ever want to get married, If I was ever to consider it, I will definitely be one of those women who marry and divorce every few years or so. Because why would I want to be spend the rest of my life with one effing man? I know my opinions are not the norm, but that is so bizarre to me. There are so many delicious men on this planet, and I must be stuck with one? Well, clearly she has a lot of options with guys right now. Clearly it's not that difficult for her to get guys. That's going to change in about 15 years. Definitely 20 years. And all of a sudden when that never-ending supply slows down, her attitude may change. I'd really like to know in about 15 years what her opinions may be in this particular subject. It's easy when you have a never-ending supply of sausage coming at you, so she can have this attitude and milk it in many different ways, but it's going to slow down. And I don't care what they say. At the end of the day, eventually, they all want to walk down that aisle and have their magical day at the church and have a guy say I do, some victim say I do. I used to take long-term breaks from my significant other even when everything was going perfectly. I just need a damn intermission from being under a man. This is the same gal that used the word prison sentence to describe relationships. I just don't do commitment. At least long-term, I need to effing breathe. Well, you know what? Then be perfectly open and honest about this with any dude you go out with. And most certainly this chick should not get married. But we'll see. I know the lengths some women go to keep their marriages and relationships secure. I used to be friends with this woman who was in a seemingly perfect marriage with her spouse of 10 plus years. Everyone would comment and admire how she was able to secure a gentleman who appeared to be a faithful husband and loving father. Sometime later, she admitted that not only did she do spell work to get her husband, but she performs regular spell work to keep her monogamous relationship in good standing. She's actually talking about like this gal performs spells. Like a witch. Who does she hang out with? Who is this? She explained that women are always on the prowl for married men, so these are the measures she takes. Oh, for goodness sake. I've heard of ladies from all over the globe doing all sorts of crazy witchcraft things and ceremonies in an attempt to keep their partners from desiring other women. Some work is even done without their significant other knowing or willingness to participate. What kind of guy would participate in this, and who are you hanging out with? And if she wants to, they don't need to do magical spells to keep their guy attracted. I have an idea. Go to the freaking gym. Get on the treadmill. Exercise. Keep your ass from becoming too big. Eat healthy. Eat clean. Grow your hair long. Dress nice. Wear some perfume. Keep yourself, be feminine. Be loyal. Your husband's not going to stray. You may notice the pretty girls walking down the street, but doesn't mean he's going to go nail them. It's not that hard. Be good. Be loyal. Be kind. Be loving. Be feminine. Take care of yourself. No need for witchcraft to keep a guy around. She says there's no such thing as zero-risk relationship. Well, no shit, lady. In the movie Annie Hall, Woody Allen stated, "Don't knock pleasuring yourself. It's sex with someone I love." Now, this is the part that gets everybody fired up, because being in a monogamous relationship automatically means that you are safe to do all the loving you desire, risk-free, right? Relationships are risky, regardless if you commit to monogamous arrangement or not, because they all involve someone other than yourself. You may trust yourself to never do anything that may put your partner's health and body at risk, but do they feel the same way? Look, if you're going to do relationships, yes, there is risk, and you have to obviously be trusting, which she certainly is not anymore. Therefore, her attitude. Keep in mind that many married women are contracting diseases from their husbands. Some ladies even choose to refrain from sex until marriage, believing that once they are wise, they are fully safe to have all the raw sex they crave. She's talking about the married gals getting diseases from their husbands. Hello? Do I have to spell it out here? How many of the husbands, the stories I go over, are perfectly loyal, meanwhile the missus has something going on? How about that? But again, this is her view on things. I hate to burst anyone's bubble, but the only surefire way you can 100% prevent STDs is to be celibate. There is no such thing as a zero-risk commitment. Wait a second, I thought you wanted to have 5 different dudes. And obviously you're going to be hooking up with at least one of them, or if not 2 of them. So what about this whole STD thing you're talking about here? Either way, I'm not stressing myself over anyone's son, or sons for that matter. I have too much living to do. My tabs are kept to myself and my goals, not anyone else. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see in 15 years. Or we'll see when the next bad boy comes around, all of a sudden like, oh, never mind. because he's so trusting. But anyhow, guys, aside from the let's be honest, bitching going on here, here's an example of the world what we're in and the direction it's going. Now, obviously, she's hurt and burned. You can read. Doesn't take a PhD in psychology to see through that. But sometimes I feel like I'm gaining a PhD in psychology by doing these videos. But aside from that, obviously, welcome to the young generation. Welcome to Sodom Gomorrah 2.0, when open relationships, open marriages, open this, open that is becoming the norm, and the attitude like, well, everybody else does it, so, I'm so happy I'm in my mid-40s, and I've lived a good life, and I'm not younger today. I know I got friends that have kids, I got younger kids in my family, teenagers, and it's like, oh my God, the crap they're going to have to deal with here. But anyhow, guys, that'll be an interesting one to go over here. This is a perfect example. Well, so many guys are just like, that's it, I'm done. I'm focusing on me, forget it. And these same types in years to come, where are all the good men? There are no good men. Men don't want to get married. Woe is me. I'm alone. Me and my cat and box wine. Anyhow, all right, guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And guys, you ever come across any good articles like this or other good articles that you'd like me to do on this channel, by all means, email it to me, strongsuccessfulmale@gmail.com. And you can also see the address in the About section of this channel. And you got any really good stories you'd like to share, your personal stories, things you've overcome, problems, whatever. Whether it happened last week or it happened 30 years ago, I don't care. Send it on over, write out well, and if it's good, I'll certainly do it in the future. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.